Perfect. There we go. So welcome everyone to this evening of Positive Birthing Testimonials. So I'm here with our guest speakers, Nancy, Michelle, and Sarah, and we're really excited to be doing this first online event. It's going to be on our website, on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, and we wanted something that was immobilized in time just because, you know, we have many moms coming through the birthing center, and we wanted this to be always available for new moms to come in to get the inspiration that these wonderful ladies are going to be sharing with us. So this video is brought to you by La Maison de Naissance L'Ouest de l'Île. And this is a birthing center that's been at the service of Montreal families since 1994. And my name is Heidi. I'm actually a parent volunteer. So after I had my third baby, they talked to us about the committee. I loved the idea and I really jumped on board. So I'm a mom of three. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 18-month-old. And the first two were born in a hospital, and they were both natural births. So I had never any medical intervention. I was really just left alone with my doula. I had my own summer dress. I didn't have an IV. I wasn't plugged to anything. And I had wonderful natural births in hospitals. And for my third baby, I knew it was the last one. And I wanted the midwife and the birthing center experience, which is why I decided to go to the West Island Birthing Center for that one. And I was just blown away by the difference. And by profession, I'm a healthcare practitioner. So I knew, like, I'm very comfortable in hospitals. I knew the routine, but I loved just the flexibility and how everything was stress-free in a birthing center from a clinician to patient perspective. You know, like, they're very rigorous and everything is done so meticulously, but I just felt like I had time with my midwife. And I just loved being in a women empowerment zone versus more of a diagnosis in a hospital. But I had great experiences in both. And so the purpose of this video is really to inspire new moms or moms who've either had interventions on their first delivery and on their second delivery, they want to go for a natural birth, you know, for whatever reasons. And especially myself with my first baby, I knew I wanted to do it, but there's so much out there, you know, you see in movies the pain, and then people give you advice of what if, you know, it's going to hurt, you're not going to be able to do it, you won't make it to the end. And in my head, I was like, no, I can do it. I know I can do it. And it's really that perspective that I came with my first delivery. And I know I've met so many other moms with great experiences, which is why we are doing this evening for expecting and also future moms. So we're going to start with our first speaker, Nancy. So Nancy is a mom of two, and you're going to see her wonderful quote on our website. And I sent all of our speakers a series of questions. They're going to have 8 to 10 minutes to speak each. And at the end, I have some extra questions to ask, kind of a bit of a panel, if you will. So I'm going to mute myself, and if I mute you as a guest, don't be insulted. It's just so we don't have any background noises for Nancy, and that's it. So I'm going to leave it to you, Nancy.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining in. I'm really happy that you're all in here with us to learn a bit more about natural birthing. And whether you're pregnant or thinking about it or already had your children, you can learn so much from hearing from people's testimonials for sure. So natural birth for me at first was something that was fully unknown. I had never heard about natural birth. I have a mom who had C-sections, a sister who had C-sections. It was something that I thought was just the way to go. You know, you go to the hospital and do your thing. And then when I got pregnant, I started doing a little bit of research, and I fell upon 2 documentaries. The first was The Business of Being Born, and the second was L'Arbre et le Nid, which is available at the birthing center, actually. And after watching those documentaries, it was just eye-opening, and I realized that birth is such a beautiful thing, and that our bodies really are a lot stronger than we think. My initial understanding was that you know, just put it in the hands of a health practitioner and follow them, and they'll tell you when to push, and they'll tell you when you're having a contraction, and everything goes according to what they say. But the more and the more that I submerged myself in the culture of natural birth and birthing center and all of that culture, I realized that there are a lot of women out there that have done it, whether it is at home or in the water or in the birthing center by themselves. Those are strong women that are able to tune in with their bodies, and that have been given the blessing not only to be able to bear children, but also to be able to birth their children without any difficulties. So right away, I knew that that was something I was interested in. And given that my husband and I are already a little bit more towards the natural remedies, and we like to look for second options and things that have the least side effects, I liked the option of having a medication-free birth for my child. And I wanted to remember every single moment, whether it would be painful or joyful or easy or difficult. I just wanted to be able to be fully conscious, fully aware, and fully in charge of that beautiful moment for me and for my child. So I went to the birthing center, and that's where I met my midwife for the first time. I did a tour and I saw how beautiful the facility was. Fell in love instantly, didn't know it existed. It looks like a beautiful house. It didn't even look like a place where people give birth. I would have moved in from the get-go. I had an idea in my mind of what I wanted for my birth. So with my first, I told myself I want to have a water birth. I watched a lot of videos about it. I started thinking more and more about it. And as the pregnancy progressed, meeting with my midwife made everything a lot less stressful. Being someone who doesn't deal very well with physical pain, I thought that the natural birth route meant you just have to deal with the pain and that's it. Suck it up kind of thing. But it's a lot more different than that, because when I met with my midwife, who is an angel, she listened, she was there for me, not only to offer support for the physical pain that will happen, but also emotional support, and just also to be there and guide you and to mentor you and to give you some good advice. We took some classes, which one of them was pain management, and I have to tell you that class saved my life, and I'll get to it in a little. Meeting with them and just sharing my fears, my insecurities. It wasn't just on a medical level where they check the baby and they make sure that you're progressing well. I found much more at the birthing center. I found a friend in my midwife. I found that I knew my body better just by being around people who had gone through it and shared all of their experiences. So that was a really beautiful thing. So when it came time to have my child, I was expecting that I was ready and everything was going to go by the book. So it was on a Wednesday, and I remember we were watching Shark Tank. It was 10 p.m. and all of a sudden my water broke. And I thought it would be like in the movies, this big dramatic flood. But my water broke very gently, very pain-free, very quietly in the late evening. And so I was very excited. I got up right away. We said, okay, are you feeling any contractions? We took a towel, took our bag that was already prepared, and went to the birthing center. It's then that we realized that we were too early, because I was not having contractions that were 5 minutes apart yet. So we were checked. We were, made sure that everything was okay and sent back home to rest and just to wait for the body to do its own thing. So I waited, and 2 days later is when my body actually was ready. I remember we went to Toys R Us, and I was walking around totally fine, pain-free, excited, happy. I'm thinking, I've got this. This is great. And we bought some last-minute items for our child. And then when the pain started to become a bit more intense and the contractions were closer together, that's when we rushed back to the birthing center. And Trista, my main midwife, was there to welcome me and to check that everything was fine. Baby was doing super good. I just want to encourage all the women out there, because my case was actually, to start off, I was a high-risk pregnancy because I have low blood platelets, meaning that I bleed excessively when I bleed. So the midwives did an amazing job at recommending ways that I could find remedies that are natural to try and help my blood to have the proper blood counts, platelet counts, so that I could have a natural birth. And with all of their efforts, they recommended someone who actually was able to help me. So like a week before labor, I had enough blood platelets to have a natural birth, and it ended up being a wonderful experience. When I got to the birthing center, I thought it would go fast since it took so much time for me to get there. It had been 2 days. The contractions took some time. I remember thinking in the middle of my contractions, okay, this isn't so bad. It feels like cramps. I can handle this. But what really carried me through my first labor, it was the fact that I had convinced myself in my mind that I was able to do this. And this is something that I think is key in choosing to have a natural birth, because there's so much power in the mind, so much power in when you declare things and truly believe them, so much power in the words that come out of our mouths. So if you say, I'm strong, I'm able, I know my body, I can do this, you're much more likely to go through a beautiful and smooth birth. Even if it's a long and painful one, you will go through it in a smooth and happy way, as opposed to declaring things like, I can't do this, it's too painful, I'm too tired, I'm giving up on this. These things become true for us. And I know because my birth took a very long time. My son was taking his sweet time and he didn't want to come out. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm having a water birth. So we're at the birthing center, having a lot of contractions, and here's where the classes come in and really help. There is a pain management class where they teach you and your partner or whoever is your support during your labor, special pressure points that they can press on and special positions and techniques to help cope with the pain. That was miraculous for me. I had a lot of pain in my back both times that I gave birth, and having my partner there and my midwife there to support me, to put heat on the area, to do pressure points, really made the full difference. The second time around, all I wanted was those special massages because they really carry you through. So I went into the birthing pool and I thought that this is how it was going to go, but my body already knew in what position it wanted to birth my son. And so I had to learn in the midst of that moment to listen and to tune in to what my body is telling me. So after trying 2 to 3 times to go in the birth pool and feeling highly uncomfortable, I finally decided to surrender and to listen to my body. And that's when I realized that out of all the positions I was trying, lying down on my right side was the perfect position for my body. And so the funny thing is that my second labor was also in that same position. So that goes to prove that your body really knows what it needs in that moment. And for my body, it was to be lying down on the right for some reason, but it doesn't have to be cookie cutter. It has to be what's best for you. So even if in the documentaries you've watched or in your culture or in what you've seen, there's something that you think it has to be that way, trust yourself, trust your body, because it will speak to you so loud in that moment. When everything else is quiet and there's no one, that's what's beautiful about the natural birth, is that there's no doctor there that's telling you you're gonna push now or it's time. Your midwife is there to offer you support, to listen, to help you listen, to offer you guidance. But you're the one who in the end makes the decision that it's time to push. I feel it, my body's telling me. And that, I think that was my biggest fear. It was knowing how to listen to my body, because when other women would tell me your body speaks, to me that I couldn't relate. I never heard my body speak to me before in my 30 years of life. But in the moment of birth, when you're in labor, believe me, if you are in an environment that is soothing, that is calm, that your body is comfortable in, and if you take the time to listen, your body will guide you and you'll be able to go through it just the way that you are meant to go through it or supposed to go through it. So for me, it took a very long time for my first. The pushing was actually great. No, it was not pain-free. I felt the pain. Yes, it was very painful, but it was very powerful. So it was a beautiful pain, and I truly mean that. When women say that they forget like, oh, don't worry, you can give birth and then you'll forget, that you don't remember the pain. Maybe it's true for them, but for me, I remember every single thing about my first labor story. And I'm glad that I remember, because it was a pain that helped me actually. Because I felt pain, when I pushed, I felt a relief from the pain. I felt a lot better pushing. And so it was that pain that gave me the strength, the power, and the desire to push so much harder. And that's what helped my child to come and to be healthy and to be born in a beautiful way. So I want to reassure you that midwives are fully well trained medically, and they know how to do this. They've been doing it for so many years. They've done it with thousands and thousands of women. I had a high-risk pregnancy. I have heavy bleeding when I'm in labor. I had a child whose cord was wrapped around his neck. They handled it in the most professional ways, but also in the most beautiful ways. I didn't feel once stressed, worried, concerned. They kept their spirits very calm and very cool, and everything felt like it was happening the way it needed to happen. They took care of me like no one's ever taken care of me, to be honest. That's why I say they're angels. Right after, I remember when it was time to push, so I went on the side. I knew it was time to push. I started pushing. My husband was kind of my coach at that time. He had a drink with a straw, and I would go, okay, I'm thirsty, and he'd give me to drink. He'd wipe my forehead. My midwife was doing pressure points on my back. And so with every push came progress and came happiness and came hope that we were getting closer to the objective of meeting our son, which was beautiful. So it took a very long time for him to come, but with every push and as he came closer and closer, I remember saying, I got this. We can do this. It's happening. My body's able. And declaring these things out loud is what really gave me the strength that my body would have run out of otherwise. Because 2 days of the emotions of feeling like you're going to have a child, the contractions, the pushing, our bodies have limits. But never underestimate the power of your mind and how it could work with your body in that moment. After giving birth at the birthing center, they give you this little document here, which is so precious. It was a surprise for me, where they document every moment of when you're in labor. And so after reading through it, that's when I realized that unconsciously I was declaring a bunch of things in labor, that I was able to do it, that I was stronger than I thought, that my body knew what it was doing, and all of these things are what really carried me through. So here they are. My son is born. They made sure that he was fine. They checked his vitals because of the umbilical cord and everything. He was fine and healthy. We're very grateful. So the moment that they put him on me is when I realized that I was a mother, first of all. And in that moment, did I also realize that I had met with my body for the first time. And this might sound a little odd to you, but for me, it was the first time that I understood fully that our bodies do speak to us, and that our bodies know what they're doing. They're very smart bodies, and that I don't need to worry as much about certain things, such as labor, because you've been with this baby for 9 months inside of you, and there's a deep connection there. And so your body is used to having this child inside. Your body knows when it's time to bring this child into the world. Your body knows when it's time for you to take a breath and to breathe and to take a break. And I just also want to mention that there's so much grace and beauty in the birthing process, because with every contraction that I had came a 5-minute break, which is beautiful, because birth could have just been contraction and there you go. But there's that 5-minute break where you're able to just take a moment, breathe, realize what's going on, prepare your body, rest, so that you're ready for the next push. And so, no, I wouldn't want to forget any second of how it went. It was, I think, the most powerful moment in my life, the most beautiful memory that I have. And I really want to encourage anyone who's thinking of going through this but might have fears to really submerge yourself in a community of people that have gone through it and can offer you support, that can share their stories with you. It really helped me pre-labor to watch a bunch of YouTube videos of women giving birth the natural way. For me, it helped me. For others, they might not. But find what it is that will help familiarize yourself to the process and help you to be at peace and to trust. Get all the information you need. Be well educated on the subject so that there's no fears of the unknown. And be flexible, because for me, I was convinced with both births actually that I'm going to do it in the water this time. But your body knows you and you know yourself, and sometimes what we see can influence us, and we might think, okay, I'm going to do it squatting, or I'm going to do it this way. But you'll see when the moment comes, you'll find your position. Be patient in the process. Be patient to let the process happen. I remember my second midwife, Cynthia, telling me during labor, surrender to the pain. And I remember in that moment going, oh, I'm not enjoying her right now. But it's true. Surrender to the pain in a way, because it's not forever. It is a temporary pain. And like I said earlier, we need that pain to channel the strength and the power to push and to bring our child into this world. The last tips I have for you is to declare and believe that you are able, because there is a lot of power in that. Speak up. So if you need to drink, if you feel pain in your back, whatever it is that you feel in labor, speak up, because whoever is there is really there to offer support, and it makes all the difference. The second time around, I asked for so much more, and it went even faster. Breathe. Remember that it's temporary, and see the grace and the beauty of it, because it is the day that you meet with your child, and you never get that day back. You never get those emotions back, and it is honestly a big, big blessing. And so I hope that my short story has encouraged you, but I want to also encourage you to reach out if ever you have any questions. And I'm sure that the next speakers will have beautiful things to share with you as well that can help you in your journey. So thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Thank you. There's so much in there. And I had written, you answered it, but I said, oh my gosh, how did you feel waiting 2 days? But you answered it, that must have been like a huge mind game where you knew it's coming, but you don't know when. And I just love how you say how your words have such a big influence on your experience, because if it's true, if you're there and you're saying, I can't, really you won't. And it's just reminding yourself that you can and you will. It's going to be fine. You can keep going. And I love how you mentioned the positions, because it's true. We think that it's on your back. And I mean, for me, for my first one, I was curled up in a little ball on my left side and I could not turn over at all. And for my second one, it was the same. And for my third one, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go on my left side. And the moment I went there, I bounced on all fours on the other side. Like I couldn't stay there a second. And I was like, okay, this is not happening. And there's so many women I know who had to like lift up a leg or just turn over or, squat or do something different. So that's definitely an advantage of not being plugged up and freedom to move and all that. So thank you. So I'll let you go put your kids to bed while we have Michelle share her story, and we'll see you at the end. Perfect. All right, Michelle. You have to unclick. Oh, I'll unmute you. There you go. You're unmuted.
Hi.
Perfect. Okay, welcome, Michelle. Mama of 3.
Hi, everyone. I hope more people get to see this. I think this is a great initiative by Heidi, and obviously probably more people behind the scenes. So I had my first child, actually right now it'll be 10 years ago that I found out that I was pregnant. So my son is 9 now, and I happened across the birthing center completely by chance. It wasn't really a planned pregnancy, and I didn't really know where to go or what to do at the beginning. And I knew CLSCs had medical information, and so I just kind of stumbled in, and they directed me. They just said, oh, third floor. And I thought, okay. So I went up to the third floor and I was walked in and welcomed, very lovely. And that was the beginning of basically my birthing story, because they took me on a tour right away. They just walked me through and showed me the rooms. And at that point, I mean, even being pregnant was a little bit surprising to me. But I remember looking and just seeing these beautiful rooms and this beautiful place. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I couldn't believe it. Now, my background is that I have been and had been a massage therapist for about 10 years at the time, maybe a little bit less. So I'm very aware of the human body. And I was very, very pro, how could I say it? I'm not just all about natural birthing. I really believe that there's a place for everything and anyone. And it really depends on your situation. But at the time, I thought, I'm healthy, I'm young, I had nothing really to worry about. And I had also played sports athletically very high levels. So I thought, well, yes, this matches my sort of my belief system. And so I put my name on a waiting list because they were full at the time, and saw my OBGYN maybe once or twice down at Côte des Neiges at 8 o'clock in the morning, which was the worst thing ever. And I got the call and said, okay, we found, we have an opening for you. And so I got to meet with my midwife, and it was such a different experience right away. So I had only seen my OBGYN once or twice, but it was very medical, very in and out. You wait really long to see them, and then they kind of look at you and you're another number. And then I walked into the birthing center for my appointment and sat, and the midwives just listen to you. They listen to your story. They listen to your background. They learn about you. They learn about your family. They learn about who you are. So when the big day came, you have this trust that I don't think you could have with a doctor. Because the doctors I've seen, they come and go. You have nurses, but when you're talking about trusting someone with your health, your well-being, your child, maybe it's your first that you've ever had, it's very, very special. So this was something very powerful. I'm trying to think of the questions Heidi had. So I've had 3 children, all at the birthing center, all very different births. My first was incredibly sort of magical. My second was born posterior, which was slightly more crazy. And my third, the midwife didn't even have time to chronicle because she was born almost in the kitchen. I did have the same midwife for all 3. She wasn't there for necessarily the birth, but the backup midwives I'd talked to, they knew me. I felt just as comfortable. I feel that when you talk about a midwife, I call them angels, but really it's because they're so kind and they listen to you. And when somebody listens to you, it allows you to be yourself. And in this moment of birth, you are the most raw person you will ever be ever in your life, unless something else happens. But this is you, like at the rawest moment. And whether you're in a hospital, whether you're at home, whether you're in a bathtub, whether you're on your, in a bed, it's incredible and empowering. So what I found so amazing about the birthing center, and what I share with people, is that it's like this magical moment. Whether it was not easy, whether it took you 2 days to birth, whether it took you 1 hour to birth, it's magical and it's amazing. And to have people who listen and who are kind and caring and know you like know who you are is even more special. With my third child, who's my youngest now, she's 4. She was born so quickly that her breathing was a little bit off. So we initially monitored it, but it's very normal because the human body births at a pace that pumps the lungs, it pumps the ribs. So when a child is born so quickly, it makes sense that that they might have, sort of off breathing. So anyhow, the midwives dealt with it so amazingly. We did have the children's hospital NICU nurses show up. When they got there, when everybody looked, they assessed the baby. They said, she's okay now. You have the choice. Everything was about your choice as the parent, as the person, as the mother and the father. You choose. There was nobody telling you what to do. And that I found wonderful because it was all in your hands. Because here's the deal. I'm 10 years into it, and it's just the beginning of life. Because 10 years in, you make all the choices. So these people empowered you and started you on your way to that power. We did end up at the hospital with my child, my last littlest one. And I was just on the phone with my midwife the whole time saying, I don't want to be here. Get me out of here. Not one person came and checked on me. I showed up 2 hours after birthing. They put the baby in the NICU. The nurses asked, they just kept looking at her and saying, she's fine. She's healthy. Why is this baby here? Not one person came and looked at me or checked on me or asked me if I was okay. And I had just given birth. And I was in a hospital. My midwife was the one who was checking on me and asking and making sure. She was the one who showed up the next day when I left the hospital and checked myself out, showed up in my bedroom when I was sleeping to check on me and the baby. That is amazing. So if somebody had a question about what natural birthing is, it's the beauty of life. Mm-hmm. And if you can take away the fears that our society puts, you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Women are strong. Every woman is strong.
Yeah, amen to that.
And that's, anybody could ask me more. I could tell more stories, but like, there's so much, but it's your life and it's yours and your child's life that is coming. And it's that moment that it appears. Mm-hmm. And I felt very lucky because I didn't know very much about like birthing centers and stuff. So I kind of happened on it by chance or by accident, but it was the most amazing thing I ever came across. And I talk about it. And when the special thing is that when you meet people who have birthed at the birthing center, just notice your eyes meet and everyone has a little look in their eye like, yep, we've been there with those angels. Mm-hmm. We're the lucky ones. Whether you had any kind of, complication and stuff like that, but like, even if you were in a hospital with your midwife, they're like your person. Because you don't know how your husband or your partner is going to be. Mm-hmm. I actually assisted a friend of mine at the birth of her 2 children, because her husband tended to like just want to go eat. So she surrounded herself by her friends and people who she knew would back her up, plus the midwives. Mm-hmm. So I got to see a different side of it as well. I got to see another aspect of birth. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. So the beauty of it all is in that, and there's something so magical and special, and I can't say better things about it. I don't know if there's more questions or if there's more I can say, but I feel like I'm trying to keep it quick. I don't want to make it long, but I just want to. let people know how great it is.
And something that I find is very important from your story, Michelle, is like, you're telling your story about your firstborn, which was 10 years ago. It could have been 20 years ago, and I think the emotions would have been the same. Like, that's just how important this moment is in our lives. And there's no age attached to that. It's still always your first baby, and each baby has their story, and the emotions are just as raw as the day that it happens, because just all of those little things that happen in that moment are so impactful on your life. Just like you said, it sets you up for the rest. The fact that you could do that and you did it sets you up for everything else that's going to come in mommyhood. And there's way more shit that happens after birth. During birth.
You're so right.
There is shit at birth, but there's way more.
You're right. You're right. The only thing, actually, the one thing I definitely wanted to impress is that, hold on one second, the 4-year-old is playing with IKEA kitchen. Hey. The concept of pain is a big one. I know that a lot of people are concerned and worried. And I feel like it's something that I wish that I could tell the world, is that our concept of pain and birthing is wrong. Mm-hmm. It can be painful. I had a child naturally, all 3 naturally. My first was the least painful, surprisingly. My second was posterior, which was not fun. But you know what? Just like they say in the prenatal courses, because I did do them, is that just when you think that it could get worse, it doesn't get worse. Mm-hmm. And so just when you think you need drugs or you need something, it never went. I kept thinking it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It never got mm-hmm. as bad as people said it was in my body. I have to say, though, if it went long for let's say 25 hours, maybe yes, then that's exhausting. But at the same time, when you watch and read books, you watch the Business of Being Born, the other one that Nancy, was that the one that Nancy mentioned, The Business of Being Born, and the other one? Mm. So that was a big one that affected me and impacted me. And I think I also watched a few others, and it was so true. It was but my body has everything in it to do what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. I got this. If there's any real problems, I have a midwife. I have medical people that are here to take care of me. That was what was special. And so I actually, when I talk to people and I say, what are you afraid of? What is this pain that we're so afraid of? Because really it's not as bad as I think that it's made out to be. I mean, I'm sure we all have different thresholds of pain, but really in the end, to be empowered and to look at the photos of your birth and be like, wow, I did that, is amazing.
Yeah. And so you build up to it, it's not like you cut yourself and there's pain. There's a gradual mental hormonal build up to this moment.
Yes, big time. I've actually had sciatic problem and disc, slip disc, in the last few years. And I've often said I would rather have given birth 10 times than this, because it never goes away. It's always there. You give birth, the baby's out, the pain is gone. Okay, fine. You're sore for a few days, but it's not like that. So I encourage women to find that power in themselves, because really it's worth it.
Yeah. And something that I wrote down definitely is the support that women need pre, during, and post. It's not, when we're used to appointments, and it's not to say that, if you do it in a hospital, you get a different, I had 2 hospital births and I absolutely adored it. But I wrote on my birthing plan, leave me alone with my doula. I got this. I'm good. And that's exactly what happened. And it was beautiful and it was awesome. But I had that support, because my husband was under the bed. He would have been under the floor if he could. He was just there, but he did not want to be there. And it's just that support that women need so much in this really key part that's huge. So whether it's, I've heard people who had wonderful nurses, a doula, a midwife, whatever, a husband, a friend. The support is key.
Some of the nurses are amazing. The birth that I was with at my friend at LaSalle Hospital, uh, she had a very long labor, and the nurse that was with her, because she asked me to be there, so it was myself and the nurse, and that nurse was amazing. She was like a midwife, but they didn't have the history. They didn't have 9 months of getting to know each other and talking and stuff. So but I remember at the end we both kind of were impressed by her. So it's not to say that there's no like putting anything down. It's like just supporting and uplifting women in general, because this is like really special. Sorry, the 4-year-old is making a lot of noise.
Yeah, that's fine. It's a good segue anyways to Sarah, because Sarah has hospital births, right, Sarah? If I'm correct.
So thank you. So many lovely stories. Birth is so amazing. So I'm a mom of 3, but for today I really wanted to talk about my first birthing experience. I guess because it kind of paved the way for the other 2 experiences as well. I did have 3 hospital births, and I guess that after the fact, I kind of wish that I had stumbled also upon a birthing center, but that just wasn't in my sphere of, it wasn't in my zone of knowledge at that time. When I first got pregnant with my first, so my big girl is going to be 6 in March, so almost 6 years ago, I didn't have really any expectations about birth, although my mother had often told me the story of my birth, and how it had been like a life-changing experience, and how it was such a wonderful marathon, as she always mentioned it. So I had that story that had been kind of brewing in the background for a very long time. So when I did get pregnant, we started doing research and just trying to gobble all of the information that was available. I think the other 2 ladies mentioned the video, The Business of Being Born, and just doing a lot of reading in terms of like making sure that I was understanding what was going to happen, and getting as much tools and demystifying the whole thing as much as possible. We had also worked with a doula only in preparation. So a good friend of mine was a doula, and we did kind of a workshop with her so that my partner felt like equipped to support me through the birthing process. So that was an additional tool that we had in our back pocket, the breathing, the pressure points, things like that. But one thing is for sure, after kind of reading a lot about birth and educating myself, I really felt like there was nothing to be scared about, like that this really was a natural thing that women have gone through for centuries and centuries and centuries, and that we've always done it in our homes and, without medical intervention. So taking that in perspective, I felt like, yeah, it's only natural that I can do this too if all of these women have done it for the centuries before me. So my mindset was really like, I want to do this unmedicated. Yes, I'm going in a hospital, but I want to just let my body do its thing. My baby was due on March 2nd, and she ended up coming March 15th. So I was 41.5 weeks. I had asked my gynecologist, what's the last possible date that we can do induction? And I really didn't want to go through induction. But on that Friday, my time was up essentially. And, we always hear about the stories of like your water breaks and you rush to the hospital and it's kind of a panic mode. But I was at the point where I had to drive to my induction. But there's a twist, is that we get to the hospital and the nurse says, well, we're short-staffed, so you guys are going to have to hold on tight for the night, and we're going to come back to you in the morning. And so that was kind of a big, I wasn't happy to be the thought of being induced was really, it was against kind of my whole vision of things. So we get to the hospital, the nurse checks me, and at that point we're like, okay, we might as well watch a movie because we're going to be here for the night. So put Pretty Woman on in the computer, start relaxing, and I get up to go to the washroom, and like my water breaks in the hospital. So no one had done anything, and it was just like I got up and my body was like starting to do its thing. So at that point, the nurse, checked up on me and started monitoring a little bit, which I did find uncomfortable. But this is like, we're talking, it's maybe 10 o'clock at night at this point, and my water breaks, and then half an hour later, like I can't watch the movie anymore because like the contractions are starting to get really, really intense. But again, keeping in mind, like, okay, every contraction that comes, I'm able to handle this. And, they say you can handle anything for a minute. That was really kind of the way that I was trying to view it. It also helped that they had the bathtub. So I was able to kind of break that time with going into the bathtub and all that, which was really nice to help manage the pain. But, fast forward to like 5 hours later when I'm into the delivery room and they called the doctor to say, this patient is about to give birth, you have to come in. And they're like, no, that's impossible because we didn't even induce her yet. She's not even registered into the hospital. So it happened extremely fast. It's as if my time was up, and I finally like relaxed and let go of any expectations. And the moment I got into the hospital, I figured like there's nothing else I can do. So I really feel like my body and my mind like fully let go at another level at that point. And that's what caused the body to start working and allowing this baby to come through. And it was a total of 6 hours really, was so intense. Like I didn't have any breaks between contractions. It was like wave after wave after wave. And it's as if I wasn't there. Like when I think about it, it really was like a moment of trance. Like even my husband sometimes says like, you were on another planet. Like, I don't know where you went, but you were somewhere else. And I guess it was fully just succumbing to like what my body was doing and just trying to roll with these waves that were extremely intense. And trusting, again, really trusting the process and surrendering to the intensity of like the body coming wide open to make way for a human being to come through. So that's really my first birth story, what it looks like. I remember, taking my daughter on my chest and like kind of coming back at that point. It's as if like I landed back on earth when she landed on me, and just feeling like, wow, like I actually did it, and we did it together, and we were a team. And my body knew what to do, and she knew what to do, and together, like in sync, we finally got to find each other in this physical world. So feeling extremely proud and overwhelmed at the same time, but just the sheer like pride of knowing that I can fully trust myself, and I can fully trust my body, was definitely the most empowering moment of my life. Absolutely. And it also set the tone for like my motherhood journey. I feel like, had I not had such an empowering experience, I may not have felt so positive about it all. And so it really was kind of a nice way to start this journey as a mom. So I guess like in terms of tips, or what I'd like to share is just, we have to remember that birth is not, it's only recent in history that birth is something that is medicalized. It's only recent that women are giving birth in hospitals, and that we do have access to all of these medications or whatever it is. Like it's new, and we need to remember like all the women who came before us who did this, and it's an important rite of passage for women as well. So to try to embrace it, and the more you learn about it, the more you do your research, the more you can come to realize that we don't have to be so scared, and that it's definitely something that we can handle. So it's nice to share, I find, these positive birth stories, because we tend to hear mostly about the negative. It's rare that women will sit together and say, oh, I had such a wonderful birth experience. You'll hear about, the stories where it didn't go so well. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for me.
Very good. And I love how you say at the beginning, just that letting go. I'm sure that was like, it must have been key, definitely, especially because you were approaching the end, and you were just one extra staff away from being induced. Like just fate completely in that situation was in your favor.
Yeah.
And 6 hours, that's like, for a first birth, that's like,
it was so intense. So intense. I get, and my second birth was completely different. I did have like a lot more time between contractions. So but this one, it's just like once the body like started doing its thing, it just like, it was kind of in a hurry to get her out. Very intense.
But it's surprising that your mind went there, like your mind adapted, your body sent you everything you needed to get through those 6 hours. And just like the other hours, the hormones were much different for the other births, like that's really something. Definitely something. And my first was 24 hours. I was like 1 centimeters every 2 hours, but I loved it. It was so great. Whereas my third, I went from 3 to 10 in an hour. And I was like,
oh, wow.
Nope, no, bring me back to 24 hours. No more 1 hour births. That was, nope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very well. So I have some questions for you ladies. What was so we'll talk about baby one, because that's really when you don't know what to expect. You're a new mom. So what was your mental script preparing for the birth of baby one, leading up to the birth? And was it different leading up to baby two?
Well, I can answer.
Yeah.
So for me with baby one, mentally, I wanted to surround myself with positivity. So I spent a lot of time looking at positive birth stories and reading up on it, surrounding myself with stress-free environments, listening to music. I did a lot of praying because I'm very spiritual, and it helps me. But the funny thing is with the second, I thought, I've got this. And then baby was not coming. I was close to being induced as well. And there I became more stressed and more anxious than with the first. And because I didn't know if it was going to be exactly like the first, it was a completely different scenario. I was more stressed. And so mentally, I did the same things. I spent a lot of time in prayer as well. I did a lot of positive, thinking about positive things and looking and spending a lot of time on things that calm you and that are good for your soul and good for your body, good for your mind. But I'd have to say, for me, it was the words also. Like just surrounding myself with things that are going to encourage me to do what I got to do. I think for the mental state, is that what you meant?
Yep.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask too about more like meditation, which could also be in prayer as well.
Yeah, for me, it was to spend a lot of time listening to worship and praying. That's for me personally. I know for others it might be other things, but it really helped me to just go in a complete state of peace. And my second came in 3 hours. So the first was 2 days, right? But completely didn't matter. It's the state of mind, you know. There was more pain with the second than the first, but the state of mind is what carries you through, really.
Yeah. I could back you up, Nancy, because I'm very spiritual, and I actually, with my first, and I also felt the best, I did, I had found an amazing prenatal yoga class, and I was doing so much yoga. I felt so great. I was so strong that when it happened, I remember just thinking, like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
As I said, I had played very high levels of sport prior. So in my thought process was like, I'm preparing for the biggest game of my life. Yeah. Here it comes. And I felt that really, really helped me through that first one. Now the second one came, and it was a bit different because now your body's different. It's changed. It's not the same. You know, everything has changed, but at the same time, you still have a zone. And it's a natural zone that your mind and your body goes to. I believe that any woman birthing will go there, you know. And so that was like super. Still now I'm a little bit amazed at what the body and what the mind does. And I remember specifically each one, they were all different. And I heard Sarah say the same, like everyone has sort of said that, like each one was so different as there are different people.
Yeah. And there, for one aspect that surprised me the most after the delivery of the baby is I had never stopped to think about post-birth. Like I was so prepared, and you're preparing for birth, and then the baby was there, and just this flood of emotion hits you, and I was like, I was not ready for this. One, the cleanup post-baby, I was like, where was my best friend, and why did she not tell me what happened after? I was like, what? It took an hour and a half. I was like, what is this? But just the mental replay of all of these births, I think is definitely something that is not put a lot of emphasis on, because you do need to digest things. Even if it's the smallest thing, sometimes you replay it. Why did it happen or happen? It could be good, and you could have a good birth and have just one little thing that bugged you. And I found it's so important to kind of go through that mentally. So how did you digest your birth? Like, how long were you thinking about it? How long did you have to go through it? Kind of what was your post baby delivery experience?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of debriefs with my husband, actually. Like we, because I feel like he took on a lot of emotions as well. Like he felt so helpless during the birthing event, and you know, a few times we really had to like clear the air, I guess, and say like, okay, well, you know, how did you interpret this, or how are you feeling now, and like, is there anything else we have to talk about, or, you know, like just to make sure that everyone was kind of at peace with how everything went down. So it's a positive story, like it remains a very intense and scary thing at times. So to really kind of talk about it and both of us digest it, to really integrate what had happened. And even like, I think a year later, like I was with an osteopath, and like he brought back, you know, tell me about that birthing event and like what went down, and like, are you sure that everything is properly digested? Because I'm seeing tensions and, you know, in your uterus or whatever. I mean, it's just like sometimes we hold on to these things even though they're very positive, because they're so powerful and life-changing that, you know, we really need to return to them and sometimes dissect them to fully capture everything, because it's definitely a lot of learning through those experiences. So yeah, debriefing.
Yeah, huge. Nancy, Michelle, did any of you have some mega debriefing to do? Which no one ever talks about debriefing, by the way. I want us to go on record that we are the first group to talk about debriefing, because it's an important part of delivery.
Yeah. I think the debriefing for me, The biggest debrief was after trying to think my because I had a son and then I had two girls, and the two girls were definitely harder births. The last one is the one that I focus on the most, is because I remember all of them like it was yesterday. But the last one, we ended up in the hospital. There had been some other things in our family with a niece, some things like that. So I think that there was some concern, and we were definitely more careful, or not careful, but we were more worried. But in terms of all the debriefs, it was like, can you believe that happened? Looking at all the different situations and how they panned out. I think my hardest one was the last one, because we ended up in a hospital. We ended up checking her out. We ended up having a doctor call us an hour after our checkout saying, "Where are you?" Our midwife was amazingly supportive and said, give the doctor my phone number, and she dealt with it, because I had been in labor, hadn't slept, had given birth, slept on like a plastic weird like bed thing in some dirty, disgusting room. Nobody checked on me, when I had planned in my head to be at the birthing center in a nice, comfortable room with, an aide natal that was going to come and check on us and make sure everything was okay. So it was I hadn't planned for it. So that was a little bit rough, I think, because it was a little bit shocking. And so that was a little bit of a hard one, because it was a little bit like everything leading up to the birth was exactly sort of not how I planned, but it was very birthing center, what I could think would happen. And then we ended up in this hospital with people who didn't know us and didn't care, and sort of were just looking at us like, "What are you doing here?" And when we left, they called. So that was a hard one, and I think that was the hardest one to swallow. Was just dealing with that. But then the magic was our midwife, who had our backs, who dealt with the doctors in the hospital. She just said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." She showed up. She checked on the baby. She checked on me. It seems like all the focus is on the baby, but there's a big aspect of the mother, of what your body has gone through. And I was lucky. I mean, I was okay, but I can't imagine had I had any other complications or anything, not one person checked on me, and it was really hard. So it was upsetting in that sense. And I think that I still have like moments where like, wow, that sucked. And I would really feel sad for any woman to go through that, because it's this magical, beautiful moment. And that happened. So it's the medicalization, I guess, of birthing. Right. And
I think it could happen in any setting too. You could be at home and it could be your most magical birth, and then there's just one little thing that you're replaying over and over and over again, and it just won't let go. So I think it really depends. And also for you, Michelle, I mean, it was baby 3, so your last baby, or you could have had more. It's not saying that's the end, but definitely what we put in our minds, what we definitely hope that's what happens in real life. But it's not the case. But Sarah and Nancy, and you said it too, Michelle, there's beauty in all of it. And I think that's an amazing kind of conclusion to all of this, is that it's all about perspective and mental aspect, like Nancy said, and just, we do what we can, and you try to control and then also let go, and then control again and let go. But thank you all so much for being here. It really means so much that you took the time and to share and to guide these new and expecting moms and these families and these dads who are about to go through this too. Hopefully this helps the couple. And I can't thank you enough. So thank you again. And for those who are on the call, there's going to be another one like this in May. It's going to be our French version, so we have one of each. But thank you all again. And we'll see you in the chat room. Bye.